What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Opendoor. I want to go over some of the data points, what's moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Opendoor is up a very impressive 13.4%, 723 the low, 839 the high, and a lot of volume. So 142 million shares being traded, 200 is the average, and we still do have a good about 3.5 hours left in the trading day. So we have not seen this level of volume since pretty much the 13th, and most likely, given how it is playing out so far, we will be surpassing October the 10th's volume. So crazy stuff, and this is something I've mentioned time and time again. Opendoor, in my opinion, is a momentum play, and for a momentum stock, you need a lot of capital to get in. So this is what happens when you get kind of capital. So momentum stock really moves higher. Aside from that, though, the broader market is kind of just very hyped up because of the data that we did get. So CPI came in month over month better than anticipated, so came in at 0.3 versus 0.4 the forecast. Year over year was flat at that 3%. And it's one thing just looking at this data, which is good, but you also have to look at the kind of what is really making up that data. So for instance, if we look at this data right here, the month over month, it does show energy did go up 1.5%. So if you kind of match and just do the basic math, that does mean that the other basket items did dramatically go down. So I feel like the market is kind of only looking at this and not necessarily the true data, because if they were looking at this, things would be going up a lot more than what it is now, in my opinion, of course. Aside from all of that, though, we also did have Michigan consumer sentiment coming in better than anticipated, and S&P Global did put out composite manufacturing as well as services, all came in better than the forecast. So essentially, this was the rubber stamp from the broader market as kind of confirmation that we are going to get a cut. And because of this data, it's actually making the December kind of meeting look a little bit better. So right now there is this 96.7% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for next week. And I feel like as well, one thing that's really moving the market today is it finally pricing this in. Aside from that, for the December 10th meeting, now you have a 94.1% likelihood of a following 25 basis point cut, and then a 2.8% likelihood of a following 50 basis point cut. So I think December 10th will be huge. So if we can get a 25 and then potentially even at 50, that is massive for a lot of growth stocks and even more so for Opendoor. Today, there wasn't any news from Opendoor, nor any SEC filings. So it is just largely piggybacking off the broader market. One thing I do want to bring up, though, that I feel that is attributing to the higher volume is retail rotating. And I see a lot of people on social media saying that when obviously Beyond Meat was starting to really get hyped up and started to really move, a lot of people sold out of Opendoor to get into Beyond Meat. And now Beyond Meat is losing a little bit of momentum. So now people are rotating back into Opendoor. So they seem to be very inverse. So that's kind of an interesting type of transition that is happening. But in my opinion, I think that's also attributing to Opendoor really hitting a home run today. Shorts, they are increasing about 40,000 shares. 21.4% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 152.4 million shares overall are being shorted. Shorts are trying their very best to slow Opendoor down, because we can even see from here at the peak, they were increasing about 9.4 million. So they were trying their best. So they of course failed, because it clearly didn't really do all that much for retracement. But at the end of the day, I think just shorts days might be numbered, and I think just overall that shorts are very overextended as well. That's one thing that I always do bring up, especially in Opendoor's case. And over and above that, though, there's about 8.6 million shares available to be shorted. So when it comes down to this, if they really did feel that Opendoor was just overvalued and whatever else, they could throw that at it, and then they could try their very best to slow it even further. But the fact that they're not goes to show that it feels like today's green day is somewhat justified. Plus, on a side note, cost to borrow is fairly cheap. So through IBKR, it is 0.95. So again, they could easily throw what they can at Opendoor, but they're not. Aside from that, looking at the options, we are seeing 43 million in calls, 7.13 in puts. Then 55% of all the options being done are bullish in nature. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to close above 8 and then above 10 for next week. So a hell of a lot more optimism is now on the table. Bears are anticipating for it to be kind of between that 750 and 8. So definitely a lot more bullishness in the broader market. This is the open interest. So with today being Friday, just take notice of this. So you do have 9,000 at that 650, 23,000 at that 7, 37,000 at the 750, 45,000 at the 8, and then 28,000 at the 850. Then I don't believe we should be seeing that 9 or above, at least for today. So when it comes down to it, best case scenario, Opendoor does close above 850, and you might see a little bit of a bump up going into next week as market makers will have to cover all that. These are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool above $100,000, and it is top down. So the most largest transaction is 3.98 million, 3.3, 3.3. So feel free to pause it, look at the timestamp. Anything that is a ask is a buy, anything with a bid is a sell. And then these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. So the highest transaction for today is 1.18 million. So a lot of shorts are using the dark pool just to kind of trade back and forth. And this is why you see this exchange very active today. But with it at 801, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 765 is going to be a strong support. When it was moving higher, it didn't really do like this, didn't phase it at all. So I wouldn't really consider this strong support nor kind of any resistance. Next real target is that 1023. I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note. So these are very strong support and resistance points. For those of you that want to day trade and whatever, here is that 4-hour. So 838. And that's kind of what it bounced off of for today for the high. So far the high is 839. Then 796 followed by 770. So if you want a dollar cost average, just kind of take notice of that. But there hasn't been any new analyst ratings or anything, so it is largely just piggybacking off of the broader market, just with an extra dash of good momentum, a lot of capital getting in. Right now it is above that 10-day moving average, so definitely good to see. And this is something that I did mention over my last couple of videos, is that we were going to see a pinch either significantly higher or potentially break down, all due to the data. So luckily enough, we did have good data that did come out, amazing data in fact. And of course, now we're starting to really move higher. Looking at the market position, you see a lot more willing buyers comparing it from today versus yesterday. And you still see some strong walls around that 950 range. So potentially that'll be something that we kind of test going into next week. So either probably at the beginning part, either Tuesday or Wednesday, but nonetheless, that's going to be kind of the next point to really watch for. Aside from that, there really hasn't been all that much in news or any articles. Kaz has been fairly quiet. A lot of members from Opendoor have been fairly quiet. Aside from Kaz retweeting Vlad's comment yesterday about tokenization, which I did bring up in my video yesterday, which is very out of the box. And I do feel that might be a little bit more of a prelude to a big partnership announcement. So let me know your thoughts on Opendoor. Are you buying? Are you selling? What's your general thoughts? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I'll put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.